Hello, everyone, and welcome to Politically Incorrect Knitters. My name is Ann Pinkova. This is the lovely Deplorable Knitter, and today we have a very special guest, Johanna from Potions Yarns. Yay!
Yay! Welcome all. Thank you for joining us again.
We have Johanna on today to talk about her yarn, her beautiful yarn business, and being canceled by various members of the yarn Gestapo. So yay!
How long have you been dyeing yarn?
Well, I actually dyed my first skein of yarn a little over 4 years ago, so not that long. And I kind of jumped into it pretty fast, where it was pretty much love at first dip into the dye waters. So I quickly decided after a couple skeins that I was going to try to sell some of it online. And so about 3.5 years ago, I launched my business.
Nice.
Very cool.
That's exciting.
And did you launch like on Ravelry, Etsy? Like, how did you get your followers?
Yeah, so I actually decided to avoid Etsy and other sites like that. I looked into it, but I just hadn't really been impressed with what I'd seen of them. And I kept hearing from people who are already on there that they were really oversaturated. They kept changing policies, raising fees, all this stuff. And I was actually watching some business podcasts for small craft businesses about that time, and like taking some free online education and courses from people specifically talking to entrepreneurs. And I really liked the idea of setting up my own website from the beginning and just being really independent and autonomous from the get-go. And I also have, I am a little bit of a serial entrepreneur. So this is not my first business I've started. And I have had a couple failed businesses in the past that I learned a lot from. And one of the things I realized was that I needed to set myself up as a real business from the get-go with the goal of making money. And the goal was originally just to like make a little bit of money on the side. But I think within a month, I had quickly switched my goal to, I want this to become my business so that I can leave the hair salon that I had been working in. I've done hair for 14 years behind the chair, and I loved it, but I was thinking about starting a family, and I was also just really wanting to get out of it. I was starting to get burned out and was kind of looking for something that would give me a little bit more flexibility with my schedule and my family life and stuff. And so I decided to start my own website from the get-go so that I had a more serious, like business-minded headspace instead of like hobby business. And for me, that's what I had to do to my brain to trick it into like working hard from the beginning and just kind of setting it up differently than some of my failed businesses in the past. And it worked for me. So
Awesome. Don't be afraid to dream a little bigger, darling.
That's right.
Yeah. No, that's awesome advice too, because I know that when I started putting out patterns, I was just goofing around. I never thought it would be a business. And then here I am. I just got my bags with Deplorable Knitter on them. Like, people are buying bags with my logo on them. And like, who would have, like, I never thought it would be like that, but it's really cool to start from the get-go. Like, I was just totally doing it to have fun, but yeah, I'm like, wow, I wonder what else I could be doing.
Well, I've learned definitely through all of my many careers and businesses and failures that you just never should say never, because I have been a knitter for a really long time. And years ago, people used to be like, wow, you color hair at the salon all the time. You're really good with color. Have you ever thought about dyeing your own yarn? And I was like, oh, no, I do not want to do that. I would never do that. That does not interest me at all. I just want to knit with everybody else's beautiful yarn. And it was just a few short years later that I was like, yeah, I'm going to give this a try. Spurred on by my husband. I actually credit him with being the reason I started my whole business and succeeded. It was his idea, and I went with it, and now I love it. And I feel like it fits me even better than doing hair. And that was like a perfect fit for me. So it's great, but you should never say never, because you change a lot in the course of your life.
That's true. And that's really cool too. Having a partner that supports you is great. I was actually working the other day, and I come home from work and my husband goes, hey, those little stuffed animals you make? I met a lady at a yard sale today who wants to buy some from you. So we put them all in a bag and packed the kids up in the car, and we went and I sold some stuff to some lady.
Nice.
So it's really excellent to have a partner that's like, hey, you're awesome and you're going to be able to do this, because I think half the time I would have been like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to talk to them about you know what I mean? It's really, having that support is really good.
It really is.
That's a very cool way you started your business. So what happened with, I've heard little snippets of you've been canceled. So do you want to tell us a little bit about it, or?
I just brought up your video from, I believe, in February of 2019, you had a video. So that's before the whole Ravelry nonsense went down. And then I know recently you were blocked from a yarn show. So that's, that's a long, that's a large chunk of time for, people still remember. So sorry.
Yeah. Well, so it all started innocently enough with a yarn colorway name. So as I'm sure you are aware with indie dyers, it's a pretty saturated market, so you have to do things to set yourself apart. And one thing that is kind of popular is coming up with quirky and unusual and funny little names. And some people get pretty irreverent with their names too, and just do all kinds of silly, fun things, whatever. So I had put out a new yarn in early 2019. And at the time, I had just started to hear about like Maria Tuscan and what she was going through. All of that was still like brand new, just happening. And I was aware and had kind of reached out to her and sent her like just some private support and like, I'm sorry this is happening to you and all that stuff. But I was still very like, is this really happening? And like, is this just a flash in the pan, just some bullies that need to like just chill out and, have a glass of wine and calm down? Like, what's going on? So I had put out this yarn colorway name, and somebody took offense at the name and quickly commented on it, and they went on to a Facebook group I was a part of, and this particular group, I knew that there were some people who like to make drama out of literally every tiny thing. So I wasn't terribly surprised that they all jumped on this and decided to make it their personal bandwagon, but I was surprised at how quickly it caught steam on Instagram and Facebook and everywhere else. And I just suddenly was getting mobbed with all these people freaking out because I had dared to name a yarn colorway name something that some people found offensive. At the time this happened, it was a Sunday afternoon. So I had like posted my post in the morning and then gone about my day, ignoring my phone. And it just happened to come right on the heels of a death in my family that was very, very unexpected. So my family's dealing with all that, and I'm like in shock and trying to like navigate that and help my mom and everything else, and some other personal family drama going on. I'm trying to like navigate some difficult conversations and like get together with people and talk. So I'm just sort of ignoring my phone. So of course, because I didn't like in 15 minutes respond to the first critical post, they start going on this huge rant about how I am not responding, and this is proving how insensitive I am, and blah, blah, blah. So just the craziness continued, and my husband was like, you know what, don't respond to anything right now. Let's just like take a minute to think through how to best respond to this, and we'll get back to it tomorrow or whatever. So we took about 24 hours to think through our options, decide what we wanted to do. And even though we thought that people were being a little bit crazy about stuff, we didn't think that it was necessarily wrong what we did, but we wanted to err on the side of being sensitive and kind and not creating drama if there wasn't a need to, kind of picking your battles. So we decided that the best thing to do would be to issue an apology and just explain that we hadn't meant anything by it. Some people were trying to say that there were all these like fetishizing connotations of the name, and I genuinely had never heard that. I honestly didn't even know that this was a phrase that was like an actual phrase that people use for like sexual fetishes and things. I would not have picked it had I known that, but right. I just didn't know. I just thought it was like a cutesy little thing, whatever. So we issued this apology, which is still up on my Instagram. If you scroll back to February 2019, we left all of it up. We did take the original post down out of a desire to be sensitive and just kind of curb drama at the time. We thought that was a good idea. So we took the original post down with the name, and then we issued this apology and just said, this was not our intention. And, we are sorry. Our desire is to create unity and share the love of crafting and to just welcome everybody, whatever. Some people said, thanks for owning it, whatever. But the huge majority of people came down even harder and told us to quit offering our half-assed apologies, and whatever we said wasn't good enough, all this stuff. So it continued to go crazy. I started getting blocked. I got kicked out of a bunch of groups I was in on Facebook. A lot of other indie dyers in the industry immediately started renouncing any sort of interaction they'd had with me.
Wow.
One that hurt worst was I was in a group of friends of a few other indie dyers, just like a handful, that we had started a group, and this was totally private, by the way. There was no official website, Facebook group, anything. Nobody had any way of knowing we were at all friends or connected at all. We just were privately having, phone conversations, texting, supporting each other, offering criticism and feedback on each other's businesses, just like a support group. And it was completely private. And they kicked me out of that group without an explanation or a discussion. It was just, first they sent me an email and basically dictated to me how I needed to apologize and grovel. And then when I didn't do that, they kicked me out. So that hurt the worst because we were personal friends and they didn't even bother to hear my side of it or anything. They just kicked me out. And so a whole bunch of those things started to happen. And as the stuff continued to pile on, my husband and I, like I said, had been aware of Maria Tuskin's issue. We'd been aware of Karen Templar's blog post. We knew that this was starting to happen and we'd been very concerned about it. And I had actually told my husband I wanted to do a podcast video because I had a YouTube channel talking about it and basically just asking people to use a little bit of reason and calmness and to take a deep breath before you just emotionally respond on the internet, and maybe think about the consequences of bullying people, and that this isn't, even if someone does something wrong, this isn't the best way to approach it. So we had talked about that, and then at the time decided, well, maybe that's not a good idea. Maybe we shouldn't stick our nose in and get involved. So since I didn't take that opportunity, the opportunity came to me and I got involved without meaning to. So at that point we decided, okay, yeah, let's just go ahead and do the video we were thinking about doing anyways. So we sat down and discussed what we wanted to say. We took some time filming, editing, etc. We put out this video called Spirit of the Wolf, which is also still up on my YouTube channel, despite all the nasty comments and
I was scrolling through a couple of those this morning and oh, wow, these are some really charming people.
Yes, it is. It is an exercise in madness if you would like to read the comment section. I highly recommend you don't. I didn't because after the first few, it got really, really tough.
Right.
Oh,
definitely.
and fun things. Right after all of this happened, I found out I was pregnant. So, I'm dealing with morning sickness and first-time mom hormones and all this at the same time that my business is getting attacked all over the place and friends are calling me names and dropping me as fast as possible and all this stuff. So it was a real fun time in my life. And so anyways, we put out this video, and as you can imagine, the reactions were far and away even worse. And people were like, well, I almost believed your apology until you put out this horrible video proving that you're a Nazi and a white supremacist. And because I dared to have my husband on the video with me, and the two of us were talking, that brought extra ire our way because he was mansplaining. And as a fragile white male, he was using his male privilege to shut people down and speak over them. And our video was tone deaf and, all the buzzwords they use every single time.
Oh, I got bingo.
Yes.
Yeah, seriously. It's Anna and I have talked about that so much, is that you can't argue with these people because that's what they do. You're xenophobic and you're racist and you're a white supremacist. And so therefore, you can't argue with that. It's really hard to disprove those things, and that's why they do it, because they're ridiculous.
And especially since, you put out this yarn colorway, you're like, oh, wait, this is an issue. You apologize all in good faith, and it wasn't good faith back.
Yeah.
That's just not good enough. Pile. Terrible.
And it's like everything else that happens. It's, Stephen B., it wasn't good enough. Maria wasn't good enough. Karen Templar's, because you bow to them and then they find another reason to be pissed off at you. It's never going to be good enough because, they have that do better. Yes. You can't do better because you don't know what better is because it's always changing.
Yes.
Nonsense.
Yes. And if you try to apologize, they tell you it isn't real, or, you know, they always have some issue. And right after it happened, I went through a little bit of a phase where I kind of was frustrated that we had apologized in the beginning, because I was like, there's nothing wrong with what we put out. And it was an honest mistake at the worst. But like, I even, when it happened, I had a whole bunch of comments on my post. And this was still very early on. This was before Ravelry. This was before a lot of people spoke out. There were only like Maria was the only one I personally knew. There might have been a couple others, but she was the only one I knew of who was actually speaking out. And then after she got mobbed, she kind of took a little break from social media, which was probably wise, because that will destroy you if you don't. And so I felt very alone, because a lot of people messaged me privately to send their support, but they were like, I'm too scared to say anything, or I have a business and I don't want to get attacked. And I did not take that personally, because I 100% understood. I mean, that was why I didn't put out my video before I got attacked, was I had the same thoughts of like, is this really necessary? Is this actually going to help or just make things worse for them and for me? Can I afford to lose my business if they come after me? All these things. And so I didn't take it personally, but I was kind of discouraged. Like, if nobody says anything, it's just going to keep getting worse. And like, if you can see the problem, why don't you say something? But I did have a lot of people, and I had a lot of people that were in the group, the racial minority group, who people were telling me that I had offended with this colorway name, who said, you know, well, I'm like part Asian and I'm super offended. This is horrible and blah, blah, blah. And that is why I issued the apology, was because of people like that. If I have genuinely hurt you, even if it was unintentional, my conscience says I need to at least apologize. I don't need to grovel and change my whole business, but apologizing. And what does it cost me to take that yarn down and rename it, which is what I did. I immediately, in 24 hours, I'd taken it off my website, issued the apology, said, I'm going to rename the yarn. It won't have the same name at all. I deleted the photo so nobody can even find it and figure out which yarn it was. Like, it's not a big deal. But like, I'm going to apologize so that my conscience is clear, because I know I'm a good person and I want to be caring. I want to be kind, and I want to know when I can do better, but I'm not going to grovel, because it obviously doesn't do any good. And I had just as many, if not more, people from that people group commenting or sending me private messages saying, hey, I'm Asian and I don't see any problem with it. I don't know why people are so offended. I wish people would quit getting offended for me, because this doesn't bother me at all. And so it was also getting mixed messages, like, from this people group, some people are offended, yes, but some people really aren't. So was it really that big of a deal, or did it just offend some people who I've then apologized to? So I guess that was kind of the big, it's hard to know what's the right thing to do, but I felt bad that I issued the apology, because I didn't want to be seen to be groveling for a while. Right. But then I thought about it and realized that, you know, I did what was right for my conscience, and that's the important thing. And I think that's the best thing you can do in those situations, because you're not going to please them. So you have to do what is right for you and what you feel good about and what you feel convicted about. And that's what we did. So we did not take our video down. We did not turn off the comments, which was something else that a lot of people who were supporters of ours kept sending us messages saying, I just hate to see the comments and the nastiness that is raining down on you. Why don't you turn off comments on your Instagram posts? Why don't you turn off comments on your video? And we decided we didn't want to, because we thought it was important to let people have a stage for free speech, even if we disagree with it. Right. And in principle, we wanted that same freedom. So we felt like it was not right to take that away from other people. We wanted to model the behavior that we would like to see. So we decided to leave it up for that. But the other reason was, we thought, you know, they're condemning themselves out of their own mouths to anyone with a reasonable bone in their body. If you're really reasonably looking at this, if you're listening to the video and what I actually say, if you're reading the apology and what I actually wrote, and then you're seeing the comments, if you are a reasonable person and you're not just trying to spout the ideology, you should be able to see that for yourself. And if you can't, that's fine, but I want to give you that chance to see that for yourself, because I don't want people to just listen to what, well, I said, she said that. I want them to see what she said and decide for themselves. So that's why we left it up. We have left it up. The only post we've ever deleted was that original one with the offensive colorway name in it, out of a desire to be kind and sensitive to people. And then we've left up the other comments, as nasty as they got. We only blocked, I think, 2 accounts, and that was because of continued harassment. Even after we tried to engage them, we tried to say, look, we've done what we can. Here's our standards. Here's what we're doing, whatever. And they continued to harass. So we did have to block a couple of accounts, but I think only 2. Yeah, so we responded as well as we could. So that was the first part. And right after the video, like just days after the video came out, I got a call from a local yarn shop who was my wholesaler here in Kansas City. And she called me and basically she had a wholesale order that I had just finished dyeing and I was just about to deliver that week. And she'd paid a deposit on it, but not the whole thing yet. And she called and said that she didn't want to be associated with me. She couldn't have my name associated with her shop. She was canceling her order and she demanded her money back. And I directed her to our contract, which said, I'm not going to give you back your deposit, but you don't have to pay anything else and I'll keep the yarn, whatever. And she was like, okay, fine, whatever. But I'm like, I won't have you associated with my shop in any way. To her credit, she didn't go online and join the mobbing online, but she was pretty, it was awkward in our small local knitting community. And it was very hurtful to me because we had been interacting for months personally. She knew me personally. I'd supported her shop personally. And then because of some people she didn't know on the internet, she decided to choose a side. And so that's what happened, but you know, whatever. So I lost my wholesaler. I also, that same weekend, I got kicked out of a couple of shows that I was supposed to do. One was a knitting retreat and one was another show, including a local show, which that was really frustrating too. And I was also frustrated because, like I mentioned, at the time I was pregnant, early days of pregnancy, I got super, super sick. And I'm never sure to this day how much was morning sickness and how much was the stress I was under, because I was under some serious mental stress and emotional stress dealing with that. Plus the unexpected death of my uncle all of a sudden out of the blue. And, you know, all these personal things were already going on. And then that happened and I hit a very low point mentally. And so my husband took over my social media accounts for a couple weeks while I was dealing with that. And we thought it was probably best for me and our baby if I took some time off. And so I did. And while that was going on, he was getting these emails kicking us out of shows. And he was like, how do you want me to respond to this? So we would write them together, but he would take care of actually like sending the emails and he would sign them with his name, you know, and people got really upset at that too. And told me to stop hiding behind my husband and told him to stop mansplaining and controlling his wife and taking over her business and all these silly things. And we're like, he's literally helping me with our family business. And like, if I was a big corporation as the CEO, I would have a human resources person who would respond to your emails. I wouldn't be responding directly. So how is this any different? Whatever. And in all those interactions, people would send us angry emails saying that we were kicked out because they couldn't have us because we were unsafe. So we would threaten the safety of people at their knitting retreat or their event or whatever. And when we would just respond and say, can you let us know exactly what part of our behavior is unsafe, or can we talk about this so we can find common ground and we can, you know, compromise with you? Nobody would ever respond. They would just say, well, you sent out this harmful, hurtful video. And we'd say, well, what quotes directly from the video are harmful or are threatening to people of color or whoever it is? And they never could respond. They never did. Usually they would just start name calling and send some kind of angry emotional email and then just say, I'm done with you, and quit responding after that. So that happened and I started freaking out that I was going to lose my business. Somebody went onto my website and found a calendar of events of all the shows I was going to be in for the year and started circulating that, including, and I never did find evidence of this, so I don't know if this is real or if they just said this, but one of the shows that kicked us out said they did so because they received a petition that a bunch of people had signed asking them to kick me out because I was threatening the safety of minority groups and stuff because of my Nazi white supremacist views. And
you're just standing there swinging around yarn.
Right? Yes.
Like,
yes, because
with really terrible labels, which nobody knew were terrible before, but right now it's just like, wow, I can't.
Yes.
And once again, they forget the fact that people who are white supremacists are proud to be white supremacists, and they will tell you. But they like to label the rest of us as that because it's an easy thing that they can do, and you can't argue with it.
Yeah.
Nonsense.
Yep, it was pretty crazy. So yeah, it was an interesting time. So we started just kind of regrouping a little bit. focusing on online sales. I had to take the calendar of events off my website. I had to get really, really careful about making sure I didn't have too much personal information online. I was also super like paranoid being pregnant for the first time and trying to navigate that whole world, and then being like, I don't know how crazy some of these bullies are. Right after that had happened, I had a trunk show scheduled at a yarn shop in a town pretty close by. And a few weeks before I was supposed to show up there, the owner called me all concerned and worried because she wasn't involved in any of this drama, didn't know anything about it, and had started getting threatening phone calls at the shop of people telling her that she should not allow me on the premises, and if she did, they were going to bring a mob to the shop during my trunk show and picket and protest and all this stuff. Yeah, thankfully she was brave enough to stand up to them, and she just blocked a few accounts. We were careful and started not mentioning it. We didn't advertise it online. She just sent it out to her newsletter. I sent it out to mine. And we kind of flew under the radar with it. We had a great turnout, a wonderful show. Nobody showed up to do anything, which just proves that these bullies are keyboard warriors. They don't have the guts to actually show up and confront you face to face. But my husband and her husband did show up that day to be security. They decided to stay at the shop and just kind of like hang out and check out and make sure that everything was okay. And it was, but you know, that shakes you when you're like, man, I don't know if I show up today, if I'm going to get punched in the face, or if there's going to be a protest, if we're going to have to call the police. I don't know if I should even go to this show. We considered canceling. And then she was worried about her business, and it was just super stressful.
It boggles my mind that over a name of a colorway that they would protest and picket, and you apologized.
Yeah.
Like if you had doubled down and been like, yeah, I totally don't like that group of people, maybe I could see like some of this happening, but no, I apologize. I didn't mean to offend anybody. Oh, but we're still going to come and we're going to threaten you guys. It doesn't even make any sense.
Yeah, and you know, like if you really didn't like a group of people, then why would you like have a yarn colorway named? Like that doesn't make any sense either. Like why?
Yeah, unless it was that colorway that you came out with that you despised, and then you were like, hey, if I have to make this again.
No,
but it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I think what was so frustrating was that the people who were already upset saw our YouTube video coming out the weekend after the initial infraction and our apology and everything. They saw that as doubling down, even though that was not at all the intent. And if you really watch the video with an open mind, I think it's pretty easy to see that the whole thing of our video was, we called it Spirit of the Wolf. And that really upset people because somehow that was being offensive, and they don't understand the concept of a metaphor, so they immediately took that as we were calling people of color wolves and beasts and animals. Even though we said multiple times throughout the video that the spirit of the wolf is a metaphor for that part that is inside every single human being. We all have good, noble, beautiful values and spirits inside of us, and then we all have those critical, nasty, selfish, mean-spirited parts of us. And the spirit of the wolf is when we allow that snarly, scratchy, I'm just going to fight to the death because I feel like I'm being attacked sort of spirit to rise to the surface, and it causes division. And so the concept of the video was, we all have this in us, so let's stop reacting to everyone else, even when they're being snarly and they're being difficult. Let's stop reacting, and let's like center and focus and find that good, loving part of us that's going to see the best in people and say, I can disagree with you, but do it in a kind way, and I can engage with you without having to try and rip you to shreds. And there are healthy ways to do this and non-healthy ways. And it was kind of about telling people to basically quit getting caught up in the comment section, quit allowing the internet to bring out the worst part of you, and try to remember that these are real people and see them as people you'd see face to face, and treat them with dignity and respect, regardless of who they are, regardless of where they come from, who they vote for, what color they are, what orientation they are, what religion they are. None of it matters, because at heart, we are all the same. And that was the point of the video. But if you are mad and trying to make it fit your agenda, it can be really easy to gloss over that and find anything to be offended at, even the fact that a man might be speaking for about a third of the video. because then he's mansplaining and using his male privilege to dominate you.
Yeah. Or he's your spouse and he sees his job as to support you and possibly be your protector, but hey,
Exactly.
we don't like traditional family values mostly, so that's unacceptable also, just so you know.
Don't even mention men. Just leave them out of this.
Right.
Seriously,
Like, that isn't
if people,
sexist.
Sometimes people forget that I'm the dyer and I started the business, so it's my business in that sense. And I'm the one who does most of the podcasting, so I'm usually the one on camera. People don't see him because he's behind the scenes. He designs my logo. He does a lot of the design work. He helps me. I run the website on most times, but he like looks over it. He helps me with major changes. He helps me with running packages. He helps me with editing sometimes. He helps me in lots of little ways. He watches the baby so I can dye yarn. Like, he does all these things. It's not my business. It's our business. It's our family business. He's as much a part of it. And I always tell people without him, there would be no Potion Yarns, because he inspired me to dye my first ever skein of yarn. He encouraged me to start my business. He believed in me when nobody else would. He has sacrificed more than anybody to make this happen. And he's been with me every step of the way. He is as much the business as I am. Just because I'm the public face of it more doesn't mean he isn't involved and you don't see his handiwork every step of the way in every skein of yarn. You just don't realize it because he's behind the scenes more. But that doesn't mean he can't come out from time to time and write an email for me while I am mentally recovering from the stress, or step up and film a podcast with me.
yeah, no, exactly. They do, like my husband does it too. Like, all the stuff that makes it so you can do, like all those days where I'm like, oh my gosh, I just got an idea for a pattern right now. Oops, I forgot to make dinner. Honey, can you help me because we need to eat? You know what I mean? Like, that happens a lot here. I will get an idea and I like the rest of the world falls away and he comes in and picks up the pieces. And if yeah, you don't see that part of it because I put out a pretty pattern. It doesn't show the fact that I haven't done laundry in 2 weeks, or you know what I mean? And that's, yeah, people don't get it.
Yeah.
And also, if roles had been reversed, you know, if you were the guy in the relationship dyeing yarn and then your wife came in every once in a while, he would be like, oh, your wife should come on more. You know, that there's this like back and forth with that. Like, what?
I thought that it had pretty much died down after that because things were rough for about a month, but things were starting to die down. I think most of the people that got enraged blocked me and moved on after stuff died down. And after I quit responding because they would mob for a while. They mobbed every single post I had on Instagram or Facebook, even if it had nothing to do with anything. And I was just putting up a picture of pretty yarn with like a simple quote or just some hashtags and nothing else. They would mob it and be like, are you going to respond? Are you going to like apologize? And I'm like, I did, whatever. So they kept mobbing me. Then they gave up because we didn't respond and they just moved on. Plus at that point, it was starting to go on the upswing, that more and more people were starting to come under attack. More and more people were like, holy crap, this is going on. I didn't even know about this.
Right.
So
there's more fun people to harass over there. You stopped responding, so you know.
Well, and I think part of the reason they moved on quickly largely it's because it's the internet. They have a 2-second memory, but also because I wasn't that big of a business, so they felt like they had toppled me. They got me kicked out of a bunch of shows for a week or maybe 2. I was the hot button topic. But even to this day, there are so many people that have never even heard of me that missed all of that. So I wasn't that big, and they quickly realized that they could have more of an impact and get more press time, so to speak, more of the limelight if they attacked bigger people. So they kept moving on. They didn't bother leaving alone small businesses, though. I know a lot of businesses even smaller than me that got attacked. Many of them folded, or some of them just took a vacation or a break. But yeah, they just kept attacking people. And then the Ravelry thing happened, and I wasn't really that surprised, but people were really distracted by that. And then I'm not happy that happened, but in a way it was like, at least this is shining a light on something that a lot of people who are well-intentioned and would never join in the mobbing, but they just are uncomfortable talking about or dealing with, and they don't want to think about like picking sides and all that. And I tried really hard not to make people feel like they needed to pick sides, but it was a little bit hard to feel like so alone and feel like nobody knows and nobody cares. and nobody cares what happened to Maria. Nobody cares what happened to me. Nobody cares what happened to all these businesses.
Right. And then you had people like me who came in late. I only heard of any of this when the Ravelry happened, because that was something big in my newsfeed. I'm like, whoa, what's going on? Then looking backwards, like, whoa, wait.
Yeah. And
I wasn't aware of any of this going on.
so much of it was just happening, and they weren't getting challenged on it yet. And it was small scale enough that it was like hugely impactful for the people getting mobbed and a few other people that saw it, but it wasn't that big of a deal yet. And so when that happened and sock petitions thing happened, it kind of brought it to light more. So while I'm not happy at all that those things did happen, there's a part of me that's like, the good side of that is at least it shone the light on stuff that was going on, and a lot of people were either not aware of or weren't confronting or were just kind of ignoring because it's uncomfortable and I don't know what to do and all of that stuff. But yeah, so that continued happening. And by that point, I was like off the radar, and I was like, no one even remembers who I am. I'm just over here in my own little world. But you know what? My business is surviving. We're doing okay. We'll be all right. And so I just kind of stuck with that. And then right about that time, I had been, when the initial thing happened, I was pleased and surprised that while I got kicked out of several shows, there were a couple that I didn't get kicked out of. And I was like, oh, well, some of these larger shows, like Stitches was one of them. I was supposed to do my very first Stitches event, and I was super excited about it that summer. And when they didn't send anything right away, I was like, well, they're so big. They're probably like ignoring all of this. They don't even care, whatever. They just waited a couple months, and then I guess the petition got to them too, or somebody got to them, because then I just received not even an explanation email or letter. I literally got a check in the mail of my booth fee that I'd already paid, sending it back to me with 2 sentences that basically said, we will no longer be able to include you in our event. Here is your booth fee.
Wow.
Wow.
So I emailed, I called, I spent months emailing and calling every day, every couple days, trying to get a hold of anybody to talk to. And they would never let me talk to the guy who's in charge of organizing all of it, Benjamin Levesey. They kept telling me that that was the only person who could answer my questions or tell me why I'd gotten kicked out. And so I'd be like, okay, let me talk to him. They would never let me talk to him. I would leave voicemail after voicemail. I would send email after email. I would try everybody and everything. And people would just play dumb and be like, I don't know anything about that. I don't know what's going on. The only person who can answer this is him. Well, when I would ask how come I couldn't get a hold of him, well, we don't even know when he comes into the office. You know, there was always some kind of excuse. So I never ever got to talk to anybody. They never sent an explanation. They just kicked me out. So that was kind of disappointing. And then the other one was another small, relatively local show a few towns over. But I had done it before and had a great show. I have a lot of local customers that travel out to that one because it's a little day trip. And she waited until September, and I'm about to give birth, and I get an email basically just saying, your inclusion in this year's event in January is on hold because I've received some complaints about you. And so I just emailed back and said, you know, I don't know what you're talking about. Could you let me know what complaints? I would love to work with you, answer any questions you have. I'm completely open. I will share anything you need to know, but I have never had a complaint at an event that I have actually attended. I've always worked well with attenders. I've worked well with other vendors. If anybody has an issue, I would love to talk to them about it, but I don't bring any drama to my shows. I'm just here to sell yarn and make friends. And she didn't respond. And I tried a couple of times to email her, never responded. So a couple months later, I finally got sick of not ever talking, because most of the stuff that was going on, I didn't talk about. I didn't broadcast it. I didn't want to play the pity me, poor me card. I didn't want to make things worse. And I didn't want people to feel like they needed to pick sides. So I wasn't trying to like out anybody. But I got really tired of this happening and people never getting called to account on it. So I just finally went on my social media and just said, hey, I know a lot of my local customers were planning to go to XYZ event. Here's what's happening. And I like explained the situation and said, would you just please go on their Facebook page or send her an email and ask her to reconsider allowing us back in this year's festival. And it worked. I got a flood of people sending her emails and things. And within 24 hours, she had responded to my email, still kicking me out and telling me that other vendors had complained about me and she doesn't allow drama at her events. So because people complained about me, I was out. No, like can you share your story? Can you answer these? It wouldn't even tell me what the complaints were, who the people were, anything.
If they had any actual, this is what she said, that was so terrible. Not at all.
No, none of that. Wouldn't even tell me what it was in reference to. Just people have complained about your inclusion. And I was like, oh man, I didn't know it was so easy to get my competition kicked out by just giving a random complaint about them, but whatever. So I was just like, all right. So I went on and did another video and said, hey, you guys can stop commenting because the situation has wrapped up. She has actually kicked us out. And I read our thread of emails on the video on Instagram so that people could see what was actually going on. And I think that was also really helpful because while we didn't get back into that festival, that wasn't really the point. At that point, I didn't expect to ever get invited back. It was more about, hey, this is still happening. A year later, we're still getting kicked out of shows. A year later, people who don't even know us are complaining about us and managing to get us kicked out with no chance for us to share our side of the story or anything. And this is getting out of control. All of these organizations are scared of the mob and they're folding because they think that's easier. And so I was just trying to inspire people to like speak up if you're on the other side and let them know, hey, not everybody wants these people kicked out. Not everybody agrees with this small mob on the internet. And this isn't a productive way to handle it. So here we are.
No, I remember watching that video going, just like, as you go through, what she says back and forth, like, you're not addressing the issues, you're not, or not you, her.
Yeah.
I mean, but yeah, she's just, oh, well, you have to go. What?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I think that there's a huge issue with people who are scared to speak up, because if the people that agreed with you were as loud as the mob, this stuff wouldn't even be happening. And like when I was still on Ravelry and I would get all of my patterns were flooded with hateful comments, and I would get a ton of emails about like, oh, I'm sorry this is happening to you. Oh, I don't want to say anything. If these people would speak out where other people could see them, then the mob would realize they're not really the majority.
Yeah.
People have to stop being afraid. Mm-hmm. Because as long as you're afraid and you stop talking, these people who get these ideas and call you white supremacists and do all that nonsense, they're going to be calling the shots. And if you don't like it, you've got to talk.
Yeah.
And I think reading the emails is a great way too, because a lot of the stuff is done in the dark because they don't think you're going to go read their emails out loud on YouTube. And I think that's awesome, because if you didn't do anything wrong, you got nothing to hide. So why not?
Well, and I probably wouldn't have done that if her excuse wasn't just that, oh, some people don't want you here. And so my thought was, okay, I'll prove that people do want me here. I know personally a whole bunch of local customers that have come to your festival that bought from me there last year, who come to any local show I do. Anytime I show up anywhere, I have a core group of followers here in Kansas City and surrounding areas that go. I've got people in other areas who are following me on the internet who couldn't wait to go and were like, I can't wait to see you at the show in January. And so my thought was, if I can prove to her that I'm bringing a lot of business in and that people do want me there, and that I'm literally just here to sell yarn, I didn't ever post any political opinions at all. This had nothing to even do with that. And so I was like, I'm not here to like promote a worldview or a perspective or politics or anything. I'm just here to do my business, and I will bring you business. And so I thought if I can prove that to her, then that's my only chance to get back in. But also that will kind of show that like, this is what I'm about. I'm just here to sell my yarn. I'm not trying to make a thing. And the fact that she was still being so unreasonable, just to me, I really think it was just that she was scared of the mob. And I guess that's why I really am glad that it happened to me early on, because it opened my eyes to things that were going on early on. And it was helpful for me to see that, so that as all the other crazy stuff started unfolding, I had some context and I kind of already knew the system. I knew the script. I knew what they were going to say. I knew the lies they were pushing, and I knew how to avoid those traps, because they gaslight you. And you start thinking, gosh, really, am I really racist? am I really terrible? Maybe I really am maybe I really am having these issues, and it will mess with your head. And so going through all that early and working through it and understanding what was happening was helpful. But then I really also appreciate that fact that it's been a year and a half now since my drama. And I legitimately 100% thought when I hit publish on that YouTube video, I told my husband going into it, we had a big discussion about, we could just let this die. We've put out our apology. We could just go undercover for a while, let it die, or we can speak out and we can publish this video. But if we do that, we got to face the fact that our business might be done. This might be the last day for yarns. And he was really sweet and was like, I think you should do it, but also I want to protect your mental health and your business. You've worked so hard. I don't want to ruin that. So if you don't want to do it, we won't do it. And I thought about it and was like, I'm tired of being scared. I'm tired. I had felt like crap that I didn't speak up for Maria when it happened to her, because I didn't know her personally at the time. I knew of her, but I got to know her personally through that happening and reaching out to her. And then she was really sweet and reached back out to me when it happened to me. And we kind of struck up a friendship through that. But it was like, I felt horrible, even not knowing her personally, that I didn't say something when I had the chance early on. And so I was like, you know what? I want to be that person that says something, because now it's happened to me. I have nothing to lose except my business. And you know what? I'm a serial entrepreneur. If I lose this one, I'll just go start another one. So yeah, so I just want people to know, like, it happened to me. I thought I was done for sure. And there were so many things that were almost the last day of Potion Yarn. And yet we came back, and here we are. Not only are we still around, we're doing better than ever. And that was the same year that I had to take some maternity leave, and I had some mental health breakdowns and all that stuff. And yet here we are, stronger than ever. So you're not gonna fold. And I heard Dave Rubin say something about this, about how like terrible it is to go through that experience and lose all these friends and get gaslighted and feel like you're losing your mind, and are you really terrible? And then what are you gonna do now? And then when you finally get the guts to come out of the closet, so to speak, and just stand up for yourself and for what's right, it's very freeing. And it sucks to go through it, but once you're on the other side, it is so freeing, because you realize they can't hurt you anymore. They can't. When I looked at the fear of losing my business in the face and said, I don't care, I'm going to do what's right anyways, because this isn't as important as doing the right thing, that was my moment of freedom. And it didn't feel like it. It felt like crap. It was the loneliest place I've ever been in my life. But coming out the other side, it was like, I'm not scared. And then when attack number 2 and 3 came later in the year, I wasn't fazed. I was just like, here we go again. I know the script. I know what they're going to say. And I know I can survive it. I know I'll be okay, even if my business folds. And it didn't. It just got stronger every time.
Yep. That's awesome. Because there are more people out there. If you would just speak up, we've got to start, like, for real. People have to start not being scared. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? Somebody is going to be mean to you on the internet.
Right.
Freaked out. They're like, oh, well, you'll be canceled on the internet. Well, I'm still going to speak out before it becomes worse.
Yeah.
That's a really big thing for people.
Yeah. And what you don't think about is, like, yes, it stinks to lose friends. It stinks to lose business opportunities, or even your whole business. I am not trying to say that it is not terrifying and scary, because it is. And I don't want people to hear this and think, man, I didn't speak up. Like, I'm such a terrible person. Like, I'm not judging you, because I've been there, and I didn't speak up at first too. And I almost didn't the second time. But as scary as it is to lose those things, you will find other people that will support you. You will lose friends. You will make new ones. I made a new friend in Maria. I made lots of new friends. I got a lot of new Instagram followers. I got a lot of new customers. Over this last year, I've had a whole rash of new customers who found me because of hearing about me on a podcast or hearing about me on somebody else's post. And they literally came and bought yarn because they felt bad of what happened to me. And then they become a repeat customer because they're like, oh my gosh, I love your stuff. I never would have found you if so-and-so hadn't talked about the drama. And so yeah, you'll get kicked out of Facebook groups. You'll get people threatening to show up to your trunk shows and harass you. They probably won't do it because they're cowards, but even if they do, you will lose some things, but you will gain so much more. And what you will gain more than anything is self-respect and bravery. You will gain that, and that is worth so much more than cowering in fear, because every time you cower in fear, you're just waiting for the next hammer to drop. you're just waiting for the next wave of what are they going to come after me for next. You have to watch everything you say. You have to freak out about every little thing. You can't make a move without being terrified that someone on the internet is going to tattle on you and the mob will descend. And once that happens and you survive it, they really do lose interest quickly. Like
they really do.
After that last, I'm so glad I did read the emails. Even after it happened, my husband was like, ooh, I don't know if you should do that. That might be inviting more drama. But he was like, you know, I support you, whatever you want to do. And I decided to do it anyways. And I'm so glad because it did shine a light on what was happening and nothing bad happened. And that has been the last drama that has come after me. Like people have just kind of left me alone now because they realized they had 3 big hits against me last year and I'm still here. So they gave up.
Right.
But yeah, and the people who they've done 1 apology, they've done 2 apologies, they promised to do re-education, they've gone down the line, and then they've also just kind of quietly disappeared. Like, what happened to, you know, Stephen B. or other people like that? You're like, are you okay? What happened?
But it's so freeing when you just decide you're over it.
Yeah.
I put up my Blue Lives Matter pattern and like people are like, there are no such thing as blue lives. And I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. I still put out the pattern. You saying that didn't change it. So cool. I don't know.
There are no such unicorns either, but people have a billion unicorn patterns out there.
That is true.
It's just crazy how people get about stuff like that.
It's really a bunch of nonsense. Like it's hard to even get worked up about it anymore because,
yeah.
I mean, I could walk up to some stranger on the street and be like, you're a racist, you're a xenophobe. And that's like what they do to us on the internet. Like, that's how much I know about the person on the street and that's how much you know about me. So
yeah,
whatever.
Exactly.
So did you bring any beautiful things to show us? We would love to see if you have some.
Sure, yeah. So I am actually getting ready to take a short little vacation from my shop. And then I'll be coming back a little 2-week break from my shop. But there will be stuff in the shop after that, and people can still sign up for the newsletter and all that. But I have been super busy working on a project that I knew it was good when I made it, but I didn't know it was going to be this popular when I released it. But I am working on dyeing up some Vincent van Gogh inspired yarn. This was inspired by the famous Van Gogh painting Starry Night that everybody knows of. And it's just a bunch of different blues and some gold, little bits of green and white in this skein. And I have been really, really busy and swamped with orders this summer, which is great. But in addition to that, I have a 9-month-old baby who requires a lot of my time. And so that's been making my time to dye a little bit tough. So I did a custom order for this, and I limited how many skeins I thought I could reasonably put out. And I put that up. I was planning for it to be up a week, and it sold out in 2 hours. So I've been getting orders, which is fabulous.
No, I am a total fool for like, oh, it's Van Gogh. Yay. I'm like, oh, it's gone. It's beautiful though. It's absolutely stunning.
So my plan is to do another round of these after my vacation. Some of that will depend on my yarn supplier because I'm making very fast progress through my stash of undyed yarn. And due to the COVID shutdowns, a lot of mills and suppliers around the world are all experiencing shortages right now. So we'll see how I do, but I'm planning to do another one of these after my vacation, so probably end of August or beginning of September, hopefully. But these will be shipping out to the people that ordered them within the next week. And then I recently released a bunch of neon yarns in my shop for summer. These are selling out pretty fast too, so I only have a few left, but this one's called Hot Pants. And this one was my favorite. This is called Midnight Mushroom Trip. And it's got these deep purples and teals and bright, bright greens and pinks. So I will be restocking some of those pretty soon.
Those are lovely.
Thank you. This one is Venus Flytrap. My husband raises carnivorous plants. So I named this after one of his favorite carnivorous plants. It's a fun little staple. I am most popular for my variegated skeins, ones like the Vincent van Gogh. That's kind of where I've made my mark, but I do a lot of semi-solid tonals, which I personally love because you can do more intricate stitches with them. Right. And then I love, love, love a good speckle. But I thought I would give you guys a little exclusive sneak peek of some new colors that haven't hit the shop yet, haven't put them up on Instagram yet, so you guys get to be the first. These will not be in my shop until like mid to late August when I come back from my vacation. But I have 2 new colorways I designed to go together. This one is a speckle. It's just a white background, and then you've got several shades of like pink, purple, and gray and black in this real busy speckle pattern. And then this one is kind of a smoky variegated. It's got like those flashes of super hot pink and then some berries, purples, and then it's glazed with some deep grays and blacks all the way through with hints of little flashes of white. So I designed these to go together. So they're going to be a set. You can purchase them individually, but they were designed to be used together. And these 2, I decided to go with a funny little naming for these. So these, although they weren't technically inspired by this when I was naming them, this is what I thought of. I thought of those silly paperback romance novels, you know, that are like all the same plot and have like the ladies in the ripping corsets on the front and the men that look like Fabio. So this one is called
every single time.
Yep. Every time. So this is called Harlequin Romance, and this is called Bodice Ripper. And these 2 are going to be a lovely set, I think.
They're absolutely beautiful.
Those are my first 2, so those will be in the shop at the end of August. And then I'm going to do another custom order because this summer I created a Kansas City themed collection. Because I am based in Kansas City, Missouri. I was born and raised on the Kansas side and then moved to the Missouri side when I got married. I absolutely love my hometown. It's super cool. It's super awesome. It's the Paris of the Plains and a gem that a lot of people don't even think about being that cool or that big of a city. But we have all of the or most of, not all of, but most of the conveniences of a larger city and the culture and the awesome resources with the friendliness and comfort and charming feel of a small town. So it's kind of like that perfect blend. And so I did 4 colorways this summer that were inspired by different things about Kansas City, like our fountains, barbecue, jazz, etc. And I'm getting ready to release a new Kansas City yarn. So this one will be coming to the shop in September. And this one is called Bootlegger. And it's all these gorgeous deep golds into like this really, really pretty kind of burgundy-ish color, kind of wine, and then all of these like teals and aquas. And so this is a very rich color. It kind of reminds me of like old world paintings and stuff. But it is called Bootlegger because Kansas City has a history of really, really awesome locally made booze of all different types. We're most famous for things like Boulevard beer, but we have a lot of really great whiskey distilleries, and there's also some really unique vodka and things that come from here. So I was originally going to just do whiskey, and then I realized we have all these different types of spirits that are locally made here. And a lot of Kansas City was built and sustained during Prohibition. Kansas City didn't get hit that hard by Prohibition like most places because we were run by a pretty crooked character called Tom Pendergast, and while he was not a great person, the positive thing he did was he kind of was able to buy his way out of and ignore the rules of Prohibition, and so he allowed Kansas City to flourish. And so jazz and art and culture and local booze making really flourished during Prohibition. And a lot of Kansas City history and architecture comes from that time. So this was kind of inspired by his kind of odd legacy of like he's a bad man, he did some good things for our city, and just the really amazing locally made spirits that we have currently today. And so it's just a really pretty variegated color. So that will be available dyed to order on your choice of base yarn in September. So that's what I've been working on, and I have a new vintage collection. I just did a 1920s collection back in June, and I have my 1930s collection set to come out probably September, maybe October. So I'm pretty excited about that. But I've been very busy.
Those are excellent.
They are excellent. The neon colors that you showed, I'm in my head thinking about like color work patterns with I'm gonna have to go shop, so.
There are still some neons currently in the shop right now, and I'm hoping to stock more of those because they sold out super fast too. So I will be hopefully restocking more, like I said, in mid-August when I come back from my vacation.
Wonderful.
So yeah, so thanks for joining us. It was a lot of fun, very informative, as well as beautiful yarn.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to come on and just share my story and get to know you guys a little bit better.
Yeah, definitely.
We appreciate it. And yes, the link to her shop is going to be in the description. So make sure you check it out, and check it out when she comes back from vacation in a couple weeks.
I have a podcast and we do talk about like what I'm knitting and stuff, but we do things like I do a lot of videos like working with indie yarn, how to care for and wash indie yarn and your projects, things like that. And then we also do Saturday Night at the Movies, which is my once a month feature where we take a film that has some type of fiber arts, knitting, crochet, weaving, spinning, something in it, and we do a little film review and then pair it with a pattern that is reminiscent of the film or inspired by the era or the style or something. And sometimes it's literally just a scene of somebody knitting in the background. Other times it's a bigger part of the plot, but it's really fun little thing that we do that's kind of unique and different. But I would love to have
That's
that.
cool.
Oh, I have to catch up on those, but those are a lot of fun. Sorry, I'm over here like, yes, more vintage movies.
And I'm terrible, and I didn't know who you were until Anne said, hey, let's have Potion Yarns on. And I'm like, okay, I will go look her up.
A lot of people
So I will look.
Rams. That's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to keep up. There's so many people, which is why we wanted to have to highlight some different dyers on our show, because we want people who are not afraid of the mob, and you have cool yarns, so it's like a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, definitely.
But all right, well, thanks for joining us. Everybody remember to like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you next time.
And definitely. And check out Potions Yarns on her own website, on YouTube, on Instagram. Do you also have a Facebook?
I do, yeah.
There you go. Also
And
on
I will drop all of our links, the links to mine and Anne's shop, the links to Joanna's shop. They'll all be in the description, so you can find us.